The NCAA is finally going to be paying athletes, but only current athletes, at least for now. They agreed at a settlement to pay athletes $2.8 billion, but a new appeal filed today says that settlement violates federal Title IX law by paying an overwhelmingly majority of that money to male athletes. So for now, current athletes will get paid, but former athletes will have to wait for the appeal process to finish. We've got questions about this. We're bringing in our legal expert, Whitney Traylor, to kind of break this all down. I think before we get into the specifics and what came out today, can you kind of take us to how we got here?
Yeah, and that's a relevant question because this has been a big issue for years and years. I mean, since 1906, the NCAA has not paid its athletes, its student athletes. But in the last, 10 or 20 years, we're seeing so much money being poured into these programs. And these coaches are making multi-million-dollar deals. The stadiums are generating hundreds of millions of dollars. And these student athletes, the pressure is becoming more and more. And the issue was not only could they not be paid, so that also entailed because they didn't want to consider them as employees. So workers' comp, insurance, things like that. But not only could they not be paid, they couldn't use their name, image, and likeness. So that means if they wanted to do a summer camp, Shadur Sanders, if he wanted to do a summer camp, he couldn't do that because he couldn't use his name, even though a band member could go on and put on a camp in the summer, or somebody could tutor and those kind of things. And so the student athletes were saying, hey, this wasn't fair. So in 2021, there was a major lawsuit that said students could now be getting name, image, and likeness money, so they did. And then in 2024, there were 3 major antitrust lawsuits that have been consolidated, which is what we're talking about now, that resulted in this ultimate settlement.
You know, this is something we've been hearing about for years. I remember Tim Tebow talked about it at length. Many, you think about it, they become the face of a school.
Yeah. No,
right?
yeah.
But at the same time, the universities are saying, wait, and NCAA, we don't have the money for this. So talk about the terms of this settlement and then like who pays.
Yeah, so the plaintiffs, there was about 3,900 student athletes. I think about 60 student athletes opted out of the class, and they were suing both the NCAA and then the 5 big conferences. And so they're saying, hey, you generated so much money. So the settlement has 2 components. There's a component, a backwards component that says, hey, student athletes in Division I programs from 2016 till now, you can actually go online and put in your application, put in a claim, and $2 billion, essentially $2 billion of that is going to go to those student athletes from 2016 till now. And then going forward, each of the programs, they can start to pay these students, but they have a $20.5 million cap for their program, so they can only pay out that much, and it'll go up until 2033, I think.
Yeah, I wonder how they're going to like the disbursement of that money.
Yes.
Who goes to what athletes, to what sports. I feel like they got a lot of stuff to deal with there.
Right.
But talk about the appeal and how is that going to affect these payouts when and if they do happen, right?
Well, I found out from Jack of all trades that there was an appeal just about an hour ago, and it actually makes sense. So I didn't see the appeal, but I understand it was based on Title IX principles, which Title IX is a federal law that says, look, if you're receiving an educational institution receiving federal funding, you can't discriminate based on gender. So you have to treat the programs the same. And what they're saying is that this settlement will only or primarily benefit the men. And I do agree with that. I think the settlement, although an interesting argument is it's really only a few programs. They said primarily football, which generates the most revenue, and then men's basketball, and then women's basketball. So there's still an argument. All these other men who are in soccer and water polo,
The track
and all these
stars,
other things,
there's female and male track stars.
But if they don't make money for the school, they don't make money for the school.
Well, that's the argument, is that it should be reflective of how much revenue you generate. But then what you're going to have is these unintended consequences of now you're going to have concentrated programs, and a lot of these other programs may fade out, and we won't have some of those sports. So there's a lot of nuance to this, and there's going to be years of litigation on so many fronts related to this, especially as you get third parties coming in and serving as agents for these college students. They like to push the limits, so there's going to be a lot of litigation. Yeah.
More work for all of you.
Yes. The lawyers?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
I need to get some of that.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, Whitney.
All right.